You know, ladies and gentlemen, in this Saskatchewan Advantage budget, we also maintained royalty stability. Royalties for our resources, for potash and uranium, and for oil and natural gas. And here's why we chose to do that. And I'll focus a little bit on potash and broaden it out a little bit in a moment. The current royalty structure that we have in the province of Saskatchewan was implemented by the NDP just a few years ago when they were in government, supported by us, called for by the opposition Saskatchewan Party. The reason that the royalty structure exists as it is this. Saskatchewan, now hear this, Saskatchewan has the highest potash taxes in the world. The next highest is the Kingdom of Jordan, and we're twice as high as them. We are 10 times or so higher than jurisdictions that have the other 50% of potash reserves that exist in the world. So the notion, the logic here is this: if we're going to attract new investment for companies to expand mines, maybe to build a brand new mine, we need to have some temporary incentives that will obviously eventually be earned and then we'll go back to the rates the way they were, but temporary incentives that attract that investment and those jobs to the province of Saskatchewan. We supported the changes years ago. We support them today because we need that kind of royalty stability. But the debate is raging, and it's going to rage over the next number of months. I can promise you that, as we get closer to the election. And I need to tell you this. Yesterday in the Melville Advance, there was an article on a nomination for our opponents that happened in that community, and the leader of our opponents was speaking there and advocating in his remarks, and it's reported in this article, for an 80% increase in taxes, in potash taxes. He said that if the companies didn't want to pay for that, actually I'll quote, if potash companies objected to the point of shutting down operations and leaving the province, that wouldn't pose a problem because Saskatchewan has mined potash before, referring to the old government Crown Corporation. In other words, nationalization. If they didn't like the taxes, if they didn't like what was happening, they'd leave and we'd nationalize the industry. There are certain things that belong in the 70s that should never come back. Polyester suits, disco, and nationalizing industries. Ladies and gentlemen, that kind of thing sends a chill over an investment climate that is literally today attracting the attention of the world. And I've been told and criticized for calling ideas of opponents, some of these kinds of ideas, crazy. So I'm not going to do that tonight. They're calling for royalty rate hikes in potash and uranium, sensitive enough as it is today, employing through Cameco 44%, I think, or more of First Nations and Aboriginal people in the north, and calling for reviews in oil and gas as well. We do not need the instability today. There is something going on that's very good for the province of Saskatchewan, that's giving us our momentum. It's not just resource strength, but certainly that's a part of it. And we don't need the instability we saw in Alberta. When they reviewed their oil royalties, it in fact gave us, in part, the Saskatchewan Advantage, and we need to keep it. We need to send a message that we'll expect a fair return. We're getting a fair return because right now our royalty structures are causing $11 billion in investment and thousands of jobs created and future tax revenue. That's good for you, it's good for the province, and we're not going back to policies that have failed us in the past. Our budget invests in the tiniest wings of all, but wings that will someday soar the highest. The Saskatchewan Advantage budget means 9 more schools this year. In fact, our government has funded 600 new schools and school renovation projects since taking office. The budget this year means 15% extra in funding for our school division so that we can ensure Saskatchewan teachers will be paid well above the national average. And it means looking after our kids' early education needs. 500 more childcare spaces in the budget. That's on top of 2,900 childcare spaces created in previous years. 40 more pre-K programs to build on the 75 new pre-K programs we've added in the last 3 years, and the total now is 270, and we've initiated a government-wide effort backed with new resources, new dollars, and working with the FSIN. I'm grateful Chief Lonechild is here. Working with them in partnership to eliminate educational outcome gaps between Aboriginals and non-Aboriginals in our province. Ladies and gentlemen, if the rate of unemployment amongst Aboriginals is that much higher than non-Aboriginals and we have a labor shortage, then we need to close that gap. And we're going to close that gap together. I don't know of a greater source of wind for our wings. I don't know of a greater source for hope, for a bright future for this province, and a lasting prosperity for our people than this. The fastest growing economies in the world prize above all else energy security and food security. In such a world as that, is there a better place to be than Saskatchewan? With all of our oil, 20% of the world's uranium produced here, coal, renewables, gas. And with respect to food, half of Canada's arable acres, 67% of the world's lentil exports come not from Canada, from Saskatchewan. 56% of the world's pea exports come from Saskatchewan. 25% of the world's mustard exports come from Saskatchewan. 40% of the world's flaxseed comes from Saskatchewan. 33% of the world's durum wheat comes from the province of Saskatchewan. 18% of the world's canola exports come from Saskatchewan. And of the prized fertilizers on the planet, potash is at the top of the list. We've got 53% of the world's supply. In a world that wants food security and energy security, I ask again, is there a place you'd rather be than this amazing province of Saskatchewan? And so we must do two things. We've got to tell the world. Our government has worked hard to engage outside of our borders, and we need to do more of that. And then we must invest in science and in the next economy, on the strength, on the platform of this great inventory of natural resources to build the jobs of tomorrow. As for world engagement, may I say, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit biasly, I admit that I don't think there's a government in the recent history of this province that's worked harder to get our message out outside the borders. We signed up with the New West Partnership, created the largest free trade zone of the three western half provinces in the country, and one of the largest sort of GDP measured free trade zones you'll find in the Western Hemisphere. We've engaged with the United States. We've gone trade missions to Turkey and through Europe and the UK. 48% of the uranium comes from our province, with China and Japan. In fact, it's one of the best parts of my job, and I thank you for it. I get to go and tell your story, the Saskatchewan story, to a world, I'll tell you what, that's very interested in hearing it. And we have great experiences. Last May, the three western provinces, the New West Partnership, went to China and Japan to sell food security and energy security, and it was a great trade mission. I remember one particular event. We were going to meet with the China National Petroleum Corporation, with whom we now have an MOU. They're now investing in the province. But we pulled up at their headquarters in Beijing and got out, and there were two soldiers at the front door, and they snapped off a salute as I got out of the car. I kind of walked by them into this beautiful marble lobby, and there was this great delegation to meet us there. And then I looked up on the lobby of this beautiful, or on the walls of this beautiful lobby, and there were these giant signs with my name in lights. It said, "Welcome, Honorable Brad Wall, Premier of Saskatchewan." And then on the other side of the lobby, the same thing in Mandarin. We think it was the same thing in Mandarin. It was pretty cool. Later that day, I phoned back to the office to get a kind of a briefing on what was going on. The session was sitting last May, and I excitedly told the story of what happened. We were saluted, and my name was on a sign. It was great, and Reg in the office back in Regina said, well, you know what, actually what was happening here today is that there was a protest at the legislature. And, you know, your name was on some signs here as well. And more than a few people were also saluting you here at the... We went to India and Bangladesh a few weeks ago. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. 1.2 billion people in that country, forecast to be the third largest economy on the earth by 2050. And of all of their trade with Canada, 46% of it comes from Saskatchewan. Think about, yeah. We were in Bangladesh, the 8th largest country in the world by population. 57% of all of their imports from Canada come from all of you, come from the province of Saskatchewan. Last week, had the chance to meet with the ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco. 46% of all of their trade with Canada, their imports from our country, come from Saskatchewan. Think about that. For countries that represent well more than a quarter of the world's population, almost 50% of all of their trade with Canada is us. For a quarter of the world's population, for a quarter of the world's countries measured by population, the face of Canada is the green painted face of the province of Saskatchewan. It's incredible. And we need to make sure we continue to be engaged in the world. That's very much part of the plans of our government. It will mean jobs at home, it means investment here at home, and it means even greater opportunity for the new economy, for science, for wings. Because those countries are interested in clean coal technology, we will lead in that. And they're interested in nuclear material science and nuclear medicine, and they're interested in the pursuit of, the research into small reactor technology development, all of which will be happening because of a 5-year, $50 million investment of the government at the University of Saskatchewan to create the Nuclear Center of Excellence. Because, ladies and gentlemen, today, now more than ever, the world needs more science in this regard and not less. We pioneered Cobalt-60. We, the royal we, this province, saved the lives of countless women facing cervical cancer. We have ceded that leadership position. We're going to get it back and create jobs for the next economy. And it will benefit this city. We've already seen the announcement of a PET scan, the first one for our province. It was only Saskatchewan and PEI that didn't have it for its citizens. That's part of our nuclear medicine vision for Saskatchewan. Research into medical isotopes and the cyclotron under the leadership of Minister Norris, we are in a position to lead. We can build also on our position in biotechnology leadership. A third of the ag biotech community in our country is located in Saskatoon. This is the place that invented canola, ladies and gentlemen. This is the place that 30 years ago grew no lentils. And now 2/3 of the world's exports come from here. In a world where food security and supply is paramount, in a world where we've kind of forgotten a little bit about wheat, we can lead in research. We can lead in the issue of food security and create jobs for this generation and the next, and that's part of our government's vision. We want to use the resource wealth of the province to invest in today, keep your taxes low, pay off the debt, reduce the wait times for health care, but we better be thinking about tomorrow. These are non-renewable resources. Well, not agriculture, but these others. So we need to make investments in the next economy. Today, Saskatchewan is a leader. But the Saskatchewan advantage means that today we can lead in ways that go beyond exports and job creation and economic growth. There are 3,500 people in this province who are afflicted with MS. Some have traveled a long way and spent a lot of their money or have had the support of others or fundraisers to pursue the hope of liberation treatment for some relief of their symptoms so that maybe they can once again find their wings. You know what I was thinking last spring? when this issue was coming up more and more. I thought, why should we wait for someone else to lead? We have such a high incidence here, maybe more per capita than anywhere else on the planet. And we have all of this wealth. We're surrounded by plenty. So shouldn't this be the place that leads in research, that finds some answers to questions that MS patients and their families have? Yes or no, either way. Shouldn't we lead in that research, ladies and gentlemen? We answered that question with your support. We said yes, and $5 million in clinical trials will begin later this spring when the successful proponent is chosen by the Health Foundation. We started off alone, but now Manitoba's joined us with another $5 million, and I think we're going to have an announcement a little bit later on from another jurisdiction in our country, because, ladies and gentlemen, really that's why we want growth for the province, isn't it? Growth in and of itself is not the end game. The end game is to being able to do something with that tax base that's meaningful. And we will lead in research in this regard, and we will step out in a leadership position, and we will get the answers, yes or no, for those many of our neighbors who are battling MS. As I close tonight, you may be thinking, well, he sure gave us a long list of things that the government has done. Yes, I have. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that's our record. We're still a relatively new government. We've only been at it for now about 3.5 years, but it's our record. And if you like it, and if your neighbors might like it, it's the best indicator of what we do should we have the honor of another term when we go to the polls in November. And I'm proud of the record that we can offer the people of this province. You're going to be hearing more about that record in the months ahead. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, in this coming election, something different's going to happen. For the first time in a long time, an incumbent governing party will not run on what the other guys might do. We will run on our record. It's a record of this province leading the country. It's a record of growth. It's a record of lower taxes. It's a record of balanced budgets. It's a record of debt reduction. It's a record of investment in those who are most vulnerable among us. We'll remind people we made over 100 promises, and we kept those promises. We did what we said we would do. That's how they'll know we'll keep the promises we make in the next election. We will run on our record of a province whose roots run now deeper, whose wings are flying higher than ever before, and on a promise that they will run ever deeper and fly ever higher. There is a proverb that begins, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick." For too long in our province, and for too many generations of graduating students, hope has been deferred. Prosperity was for some other place. Growth was for some other season. Promise was for some other time. And the heart of a province was sick, but not broken. For we just knew the depths to which our roots run, and we knew of the strength in our wings. And this spring, Megan and her classmates, thanks to you, will graduate in a very different Saskatchewan. A Saskatchewan where hope is deferred no more, where prosperity is for this place, where growth is for this season, where promise is for this time. Today, my friends, the heart of a province is healed and strong and full and taking flight. Thank you, and may God bless the province of Saskatchewan.
For the blues, he's still inside his first pair of shoes. He's just a baby. Give that boy some freedom, let him move around. Don't get in his way. You'll won't you let him play some rock and roll. Yeah. Let him play some rock and roll. Let him play some rock and roll. Let him play some rock and roll.